At the bottom, you can see a coin from the year 1932, a Saudi rial, which used to be in the form of a coin from 1932. 1935, sorry. Next to it, you'll see an Ottoman stamp, which shows the Hijaz Railway. Next to it, the one stamp on its own. And in the middle, you'll see several stamps. When the Ottoman Caliphate fell down in 1924, what happened at that stage was the Khalifa of the king of the Hijaz area, Makkah and Medina, he declared himself as the Khalifa. Very short-lived, but he declared himself as the Khalifa. And that there is his declaration, his original declaration as Khalifa is there. It was through post where he was sending stuff out there. And the first ever photograph ever published in a Western newspaper above 1908, over there you see in 1908 in the newspaper there, you see the first ever publication of the photograph of the Kaaba. You'll find to take photographs, no flash photography. You're more than welcome to take a photograph. So if the brothers can start moving along, otherwise the sisters are getting really bored in the back. Sorry. So if you can all shuffle along and then have a look, and then maybe the sisters can file behind. Okay, what are we looking at here? So Hajj used to have a currency of its own. Hajj used to have a currency of its own, and at the bottom, guys, if you just come this way, you can see from standing as well. I've seen this stuff before, so you can come in. Okay, so Hajj used to have its own currency. So now we go and exchange the money. It didn't used to happen. You'd exchange it into Hajj currency. At the bottom, we've got a Pakistani note here, which is for Hajj use only. Above it, you've got two early reports, one from the New York Times in 1930, a report from quite early on as well. One of the things that you'll notice in all of these pictures is the changing view of the surrounding area of the Kaaba. So for example, you'll notice in the first pictures you've got right down the end, you'll notice that towards each face of the Kaaba, each wall of the Kaaba, there's a maqam. So there's maqam al-Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi and Hanbali, because they would basically refuse to pray behind each other. So they would have their own maqams, and they would all pray in their own times and their own way. If you notice, as time's gone on, alhamdulillah, they started. So you can see it in the pictures. You can eventually over there in that picture from 1950, and then you can see that there's no more of those maqams left. And over here you see the Arafat from Arafat and Mina in the year 1940. And then we get into the modern era of 1977 and 1958. So if you all just shuffle along. Yeah, I'm going to move around. If everyone can, whoever's seen can just come to this side and wait for 1 minute while the sisters catch up, because the sisters are not getting a chance. The brothers can just move along a little bit, and then the sisters can get a chance to have a look as well. Okay, so we're about to carry on the rest of the tour over here now, now. So if you could take photographs later, or and carry on, so that the sisters haven't seen anything yet, they can quickly have a look at what we've seen as well. Okay, so over here, what we're looking at is, these are original kiswas from the Kaaba. So the first one on the far right is hung on the Kaaba in the year 1960, approximately, right? So 60 to 61. Next to it over here, we've got the kiswa of the Kaaba it's never hung on the Kaaba, this one here. It never went on top onto the Kaaba. This kiswa was produced as a spare. So a lot of the time, just to make sure that if any damage comes to the Kaaba, they do have a spare piece to quickly put on in, so they don't have to sew a whole new thing. And that's that piece there. Over here, we've got, this is the kiswa that was hanging between the year 2005 and 2006. And then in 2006, it was taken off. This is the original piece. If you can see, there's a lot of detail to the Kaaba kiswa as well. This is a kiswa from inside, so if brothers can be asked to shuffle along. In fact, you can see from quite far away, so if we just move down to the Medina section over here, And then the sisters can catch up behind us. The gold piece, yeah. I'm going to tell you about that. Brothers, if you just catch up a little bit, so the sisters can come as well. So the gold piece is from inside the Kaaba. So the inside of the Kaaba actually has a kiswa as well. So up to about where the ayah is written is marble, right? And then after the marble, you have kiswa after that. At the moment, it's green. But at the time, it was gold when that was taken off. It has been red. The most common color inside has been is red, okay? This here never hung on the Kaaba, but it was produced by the kiswa factory as a gift to Sheikh Sudais. Sheikh Sudais then gifted it to a friend of mine who gifted it to the exhibition, as detailed there. This here in front of me is from the Rawda of the Prophet ﷺ. No question?
Yeah.
You know what a Rawda is?
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, it's the grave.
The grave, yeah. So the Rawda is the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. This is from the, if you look behind the railings when you go to Medina, and you'll be able to see and the cloth is quite green at the moment. And at the time, this was about 20 years ago, this was on there, and this was red and green. Yeah? And this is very old. This was maybe on there 120 years ago or something. The grave behind the railings. Yeah. You can't get beyond. We'll talk about that in a bit. You can't get past that point. That's as far as we can go. All of these are from then. That's quite early on. As you can see, it's printed, right? And then those two are about 80 and 90 years old. This is probably the oldest one. Okay, so if we could all get to that section over here. Okay, so if maybe we have the brothers on this side, and if you move in close, and if the sisters could, maybe once you've seen the kiswas, if you direct the sisters to stand over here, then they'll be able to see as well. We'll just let the sisters catch up for 1 minute. Okay, so this section is called Heroes of Hajj. This section is called Heroes of Hajj. And we've included the story of anybody who has an amazing story relating to Hajj, right? So the first person we chose, obviously there's the prophets, there's the Sahaba. We wanted to choose people after them who have an inspiring story. The first person here is an Imam by the name of Abdullah bin Mubarak. He's a student of some of the greatest scholars of his time and a teacher of the greatest scholars that came after him. So he's a teacher of, for example, he's a teacher of, his teacher was Imam Abu Hanifa. He's a student of Imam Abu Hanifa. He's a student of Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, right? So, and he traveled around, he studied with many scholars, and he became an expert in hadith. Later on, his student was Yahya bin Ma'in, who is the teacher of Imam Bukhari, right? So he's a very senior person. Now in those times, he used to take people on Hajj. And the way you take people on Hajj now is you book your flight and you book your accommodation and everything, and you pay the price of the package and then you deal with your own food. In those times, it was quite different. The way they used to do it is you would give a lump sum to the Hajj agent, who would then take you, if you went over, he would pay you would pay him more, and if he went under, then he would pay you what was left back. Yeah? That's how it was done back then. So during that time, what would happen is he would have a large bag in which he would label everybody's name and put it into a large bag, put their money into a large bag. So they would say, I want to go on Hajj. He would take the money, put their name on, and he would put it into a bag. And then he would take that bag with him and they would go on Hajj. And on the journey, when they would travel from, I think they lived quite north, so they would first go to Medina. And as they would go from Medina, he would say, what did your children want from the joys of Medina? Let's buy it. So they would buy all this stuff from Medina. Then they would go to Makkah and they would do the days of Hajj. And while during the days of Hajj, he would purchase for them again and again and again. Sorry, my throat is getting really dry. So he would spend on them in Makkah as well and buy and buy and buy. A lot of people started thinking, how come my money is going so long? Maybe there's barakah in it, that the money is getting spent so much. Some people got worried that maybe they will, he'll ask me for money when I go back, right? So people started getting worried about these kind of things. And what ended up happening was, when they had finished Hajj and they would go back to their home, he would take out the bag that they had originally given him with the money in it, the full money, and he would give it back to them and say, I want to pay for your Hajj. I want to get the reward of your Hajj as well. I will pay all of it. And he would give them the money back. And that's why we included him, because that example of that sort of khidmah to Hajj is something that I think we don't see ever in all of Islamic history. That's something special. When he went to, think back to when you drank Zamzam for the first time. And as you know, the dua is accepted when you drink Zamzam, because of that hadith we've listed there. Think about the dua that you made when you were drinking Zamzam for the first time. Look at the dua that Abdullah bin Mubarak made and how unique it is. He says, Oh Allah, Ibn al-Mu'ammal told me from Abu Zubair that Jabir radiallahu anhu said, that the Prophet ﷺ said. So look, there's only 3 people between him and the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah? And he's saying to Allah, I heard from so-and-so, who heard from so-and-so, who heard from so-and-so, who heard from the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ said that the water of Zamzam is for whatever purpose it is drunk for. So, now he's asking the dua. So, and look at his dua now. He says, so, oh Allah, on the day of judgment, quench my thirst. That's his dua. Straight to the point. Not asking for this or that. Straight to the point. On the day of judgment, quench my thirst. Because anybody who's able to drink from Al-Kawthar on the day of judgment, they will go to heaven, inshallah. So, straight, easy dua. Amazing. And the next person we have is his student, Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari, I think, is a stranger to nobody because of the book Sahih al-Bukhari, which, as we all know what Sahih al-Bukhari is, right? So, Imam Bukhari, what many people don't know, especially the sisters, it's for you guys, especially this part. When Imam Bukhari was very young, he actually went blind. He went completely blind. And when when the father had died, when the father was young, Imam Bukhari was very young, the father had died. So the mother took him to doctors, etc. And the doctor said, he's completely blind now. There's no chance of him ever seeing again. So she, being a woman who believed in Allah and had tawakkal with Allah, she said, woke up at the Hajj time and she would make dua to Allah, that, oh Allah, give my child a sight again. And she didn't do this 1, 2, 3 nights. She did this every night for about 3-4 years. Kept asking. Every day she would wake up and he would still be blind. And she'd wake up again and she'd still make dua for a child again. And then after 3-4 years, that's when the Prophet Ibrahim al-Islam came in her dream and said, Allah has answered your dua, go to your son, he can now see again. And that shows, I think, for the sisters and for us as well, that a parent's dua really does reach Allah if we make dua for our children. And what a mother she must have been to produce a child like Imam Bukhari as well, who then he went on Hajj when he was 16 years old, he went on Hajj. And what many people don't know is, Hajj was the turning point for him. He was already an alim, he had learnt a lot. But when he went and he met in Makkah and Medina, he met the people who narrated the hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. Then all of a sudden, he got to this stage where he was thinking to himself, this is an amazing science. And he decided to compile the Sahih hadith in the way that he did. And that's what happened when he went on Hajj. He memorized, there's only a few children this time. I want you, the children, to guess how many hadith Imam Bukhari would have memorized. Have a guess. Any guess? Any guess? How many hadith would you know off by heart? 7,000. 6,000. Any ideas? Pick your favorite number. Yeah, any number.
Just any number.
Just any number. You could say 3 if you want. 3,000, good guess. Very good guess. Imam Bukhari memorized 300,000 hadith off by heart. Right? 300,000 hadith off by heart. And of those 300,000, 100,000 was Sahih. to that level, right? And of those 100,000, he only wrote 2,000, let me get the number right before someone corrects me, 2,230 into Sahih al-Bukhari. That's non-repeating. If you include the repetition, then there's 7,000 something. But 2,230. So of the Sahih hadith of that were 100,000, he only chose the creme de la creme of hadith, the ones that there's no doubt that the Prophet ﷺ did do this. The Prophet ﷺ did say this. On that note, by the way, who can tell me what is a hadith? Anybody? Children, adults, anybody? Who can tell me what's a hadith?
Hadith is it's in Arabic language. It talks about the Prophet sometimes and.
Yeah, so it's in Arabic, yeah, that's true, but what's the definition of it? Does anybody know? No? Adults, anybody? The saying of the Prophet ﷺ. You're a quarter of the way there. Actions? You're very, very close, very, very close, 90% there. Anybody want to help him out? So hadith covers 4 things. A hadith will cover 4 things. Number 1, anything the Prophet ﷺ said, anything the Prophet ﷺ did, or anything that was done in front of the Prophet ﷺ and he allowed, like you said. So what we call tacit approval, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ is wajib upon him. If something was done wrong, he had to say, this is wrong, right? So if it's done and he didn't say anything, that means it's allowed. Number 4 is the appearance of the Prophet ﷺ. That's a hadith as well. If the hadith talks about the appearance of the Prophet, that's what a hadith means, right? Just so to remind everybody what a hadith is, I thought that's good to drop in. Okay, so that's Imam Bukhari, and his journey started with Hajj. By the way, if you guys want to sit down, you're more than welcome to sit down, because this is going to take about half an hour. So the next person we've got is Robert of St. Albans. St. Albans, is that around here somewhere? It is, isn't it? Yeah. Because I'm from Birmingham, so I'm not sure. But Robert of St. Albans has a very interesting story. Now, if you notice, before Imam Ibn Hajr, we're talking about an Englishman. So this hopefully is very interesting. So he was a crusader. He was a crusader from England who got to the level of being a Knights Templar. Knights Templars were basically the best elite soldiers of the Crusaders who fought against the Muslims. When they used to come into battle, then the people would say that it's like another army has come to support us, right? So this is a serious, serious guy. Religiously, he was like a mufti or higher than that. He was like really high up, close to the Pope, right? And when he went to Jerusalem, he realized that actually the Muslims that he had been told about, they're not this weird pagan religion. They do believe in Isa alayhi salam. They do believe in Allah and all of this. And he realized it. So he realized he had been lied to. So he became a bit, worried about, concerned that, I've been lied to. So he went out and he spoke to Muslims. And he said, explain to me what you people believe. And they told him about Tawheed. Allah is one, not three. Allah is, only worship Allah, nobody else. Only ask Allah for help, etc. When he heard these things, it really entered his heart. So he converted to Islam. Yeah, despite being so senior in the Christian religion. When he converted to Islam, he went and joined Salahuddin Ayyubi. And he joined Salahuddin Ayyubi and he promised him, he said, I will go and I will win Jerusalem for you. On the way when he was traveling on his way, there was many battles he took part in, and he absolutely won in those battles, every single battle. Because he had promised Jerusalem, he still went into Jerusalem, but he lost. He won, for example, Montreal, in all the battles before that. That laid the ground for the Battle of Hittin, when Salahuddin Ayyubi won Jerusalem. And when Salahuddin went into Jerusalem, Robert was next to him as his general. Yeah? From England. Yeah? So when the battle was won, we don't know whether he went on Hajj, because the record on him is very scarce record on him. When I was looking into this, there's not much information you can find out about him online. I went into a book written in the year 1200, which is in Latin. I got it translated. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be, I'm going to find out a lot more about him, about his life. But unfortunately, it was full of curses about him because it was written by a Christian priest. So that was useless. But anyway, he liberated one of the harams, and as we know, Jerusalem, Masjid al-Aqsa is one of the harams as well. The next person is Ibn Hajar, Hafiz Ibn Hajar Asqalani. Hafiz Ibn Hajar Asqalani has written many books. One of them is Bulugh al-Maram, we've got out, and I'll show you old version in a few moments. And also, he's written Fath al-Bari, which is an explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, which is about 14 volumes, which is about this big. Right? So it takes up a whole shelf. And all scholars will study this book to become a real scholar. They have to study this amazing work on Sahih al-Bukhari. When he was 4 years old, his mother passed away, and then his father passed away. So he was a complete orphan. His stepmother put him into a madrasa to learn, and he would stay there, and he became fascinated with learning about the religion of Islam. And when he became fascinated with Islam, he learnt more and more about the deen, and the more he learnt, the better he got. His memory must have been amazing, because by the age of 9 years old, he was a Hafiz of the Quran. How old are you?
9.
You're 9. So here we have, for reference, we have a 9-year-old. Yeah, when he was 9 years old, Imam Ibn Hajar was a Hafiz of the Quran. And he memorized Surah Maryam, the surah that comes after Surah Kaf. He memorized it in 1 day. So amazing memory. Now, what many people don't know is, look at the maturity of this child now. When he was 12 years old, he went on Umrah. And while he was on Umrah, he made dua. Like we heard about Zamzam, right? He made a dua as well. And his dua when he drank Zamzam is, because Imam Zahabi had come in the time just before him, he said, oh Allah, make me, in my memory, make it stronger than Imam Zahabi. And all the scholars agree that this dua was accepted. He's more senior than Imam Zahabi. Because at the age of 12 years old, he's making this dua when most people don't know what they want in life, right? And as we know, then he went on and he did complete Hajj with his wife, who was a scholar as well. And they did Hajj. But on one of the journeys that he was on, he became shipwrecked. And when he was shipwrecked, the ship sank and he got away just on a plank of wood. He managed to swim away. And he got to an island and he asked the people of the island, he said, my books were in a chest. My books were on that, and they've on the ship, and they've gone down with the ship. Do you have any expert divers who may be able to dive and go and find the books that have sunk? And they said, yeah. So they went out, they dived in, and he had his gold with him, like in pockets of gold, pots of gold. He had that with him, and that was it. Because you have that with you like a wallet, right? And when they came back, he gave them lots of gold. So when he gave them lots of gold, they realized, oh, this guy likes this. They said, no, we're not going to give it, give us more. Until he had given almost everything he had, all the gold he had. And when he received the books, he rejoiced and he was happy and he was saying, Alhamdulillah. And the people of the island were looking and thinking, they've just taken all of your gold from you. For these books, why are you so happy? And it's because knowledge is such that it cannot be replaced. And with that care for knowledge, he became such a senior scholar in Islamic history. When he died, the king of Egypt carried his janazah on his shoulder, and the princes and the judges. And they say nobody but a munafiq and a kafir did not pray his janazah. Every Muslim went and prayed his janazah from Cairo. And even Gaibana janazah in Masjid Haram, etc. Okay, the next person is Shah Waliullah, because we spoke about so many nationalities, but we didn't go to India, Pakistan, so we have Shah Waliullah. One second. Shah Waliullah, again, many people don't know the life-changing experience he had while on Hajj. So Shah Waliullah lived in a time, and very astute scholar. When he was 7 years old, he memorized the Quran. How old are you? You're 5. How old was he? Look, he was 7 years old. Yeah, he was 7 years old when he memorized the whole Quran off by heart. And by the age of 12, he graduated. By the age of 12, he had graduated from the lower level of the normal level of madrasa. At the age of 14, he graduated from all studies, which happens when you're about 20. Yeah, and then what happened was his father passed away when he was 16, and the people looked for, who should we replace as the dean or the headmaster of this institution, and they said only his son can replace him because he was so passionate with his knowledge. So at the age of 16, he took that seat, which is quite serious. When he was at the age of 30, he decided to go on Hajj with his family. So they all went on Hajj. And at that time in India, because it's so early on, there was a lot of knowledge didn't come through. There was some knowledge that came through, but the knowledge of hadith was very scarce at the time in India. So when he went to Hajj, and he went to Makkah and Medina, and he heard qala, 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 and he was like, what are these people doing? And they said they were reading hadith. And this is something he had never seen before, so he became in love with it. And he said, you know what, there's so much knowledge here now that I want to, I want to stay here. So he said to his family, he said, you know what, we're going to stay here, we're never going back to India again. We're going to stay here forever now, right? So for 3 years after that, he just went through all the knowledge that there was in Makkah and Medina to have. He went through Bukhari, Fath al-Bari, all the books we've spoken about. He went through all these books like a sponge takes of water. He took up knowledge. But after 3 years, he had a dream in which he saw the Prophet ﷺ in a dream. In that dream, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, gave him a pen. So he gave him a pen. He woke up, he didn't know what this means. So he went and asked the scholars, and the scholars said, from the description you've given us, it was definitely the Prophet ﷺ. But what it means, we don't know. So he was confused. He asked all the scholars, Makkah, Medina, everybody, and nobody could tell him what this means. So he was worried. And after about a week or two, he saw another person in the dream. He said, who are you? He said, I'm Hassan bin Ali, the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ. And I have come to ask you, Hassan said in his dream, I've come to ask you, why didn't you listen to my grandfather? Why didn't you follow what he told you? He said, because I don't know what he was saying. I couldn't interpret it. So Hassan told him, he's telling you, this knowledge that you took, take it back to your people. So he woke up in the morning, he said, that's it, we're going back to Makkah, going back to India, and pack your bags. And the ulama of the time, they said, look, India at the time, the Mughal Empire was in a problem, lots of problems were going on, lots of corruption. They said, no, don't go back. He said, the Prophet ﷺ commanded it, I will go no matter what, right? So he went off to India. When he got there, they obviously gave him back the seat that he had, so he was able to teach a lot. But he basically said to the people that he's going to, he saw that there's corruption in every sense in India. There's a lot of people who were twisting the religion by telling people the Quran says this. They'd come up with something, weird practice, and say, no, Quran says this. So he said, you know what, I need to translate the Quran so that people can become scholars faster, people can access the Quran faster. So he translated the Quran into Persian. The first translation of the Quran into Persian he did, and then he translated the Quran into Urdu as well. This is his Persian translation of the Quran. You can have a look at it later. And for doing that, they tried to kill him. People tried to kill him because they were taking the power away from these fake scholars who were, corrupting the religion. His work is so great that if you go to any scholar today, any scholar of hadith, and you ask them about their ijazah, their sanad, going back to the Prophet. What's a sanad, by the way, before we go on? Does anybody know what a sanad is? Certificate, kind of. A reference, kind of. A sanad. What's the actual definition of a sanad? Like a stamp. It's a bit like that. Yeah. A sanad is a chain of narration. So I heard from him, who heard from him, who heard from him, who heard from him, who heard from him, all the way to the Prophet. Only Islam has this. Judaism, Christianity, nothing has this. Islam has this idea of a sanad going all the way back to the Prophet. So hadith are not just written down, they're memorized as well. So when you finish in the, learning about, for example, if you finish going through Bukhari, you have to read portions of that to your teacher. And then you're given a sanad that I heard these hadith from my teacher who heard from him, who heard from him, and then sometimes about 20 people, 18 people to the Prophet, right? Today, if you go to any scholar, I think Shah Wali Allah's name will be in there. The reason that's shocking, and see, not many people are shocked. The reason that's so shocking is he only died about 250 years ago. If I said Imam Bukhari is in the Sanad, it makes sense. Imam Bukhari is so early on, right? Shah Waliullah is just 250 years ago from us. That's quite shocking that all the Sanads of the world, many of them, will contain Shah Waliullah's name. And I'm not just talking about the scholars of India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, etc. I'm talking about the scholars of Makkah and Medina. I've seen it myself. I've asked the scholars of Makkah and Medina to show me their Sanad, and it always has Shah Waliullah in there, even though he was only recent. So I think to some extent it shows the acceptance from Allah of his work. Okay, the next one I think is to wake up the children. They're going to like this one. This sounds like a Hollywood movie, but it's not. It's from the books of history. So Thomas Keith was a guy who's a Scotsman. He's born in Edinburgh. He's a Scottish guy. He joined the British Army. He joined the British Army and he became a soldier. He fought in a few wars. When he fought in Egypt, he became a prisoner of war in Egypt. And there he converted to Islam because he saw Islam for the first time. Because prisoner of war, if you capture somebody, you oppress them, right? And this was common. So he's thinking, why are you treating me so good, right? And this is years before the Geneva Convention, anything. And they told him, they said, we treat you well because we are Muslims. Our Prophet ﷺ has told us how to do this, right? So he saw the truth of Islam, he converted to Islam. Unfortunately, while he was in prison, there was a raid on the prison and all the inmates were captured. And these people were highwaymen, or what you want to call them. They stole all these people and sold each person off into slavery. So Thomas Keith now has become a slave. So he's sold off as a slave, right? So he's gone from born in Scotland, British soldier, Egyptian prisoner of war, to now an Egyptian slave, right? While he was a slave, he spent many years as a slave. Someone challenged him to a duel. Do you know what a duel is?
So you fight somebody and then you vest them.
You fight somebody and what?
You vest them.
You VS them, yeah, okay, VS them, good. The specific thing about a duel is we're going to have a fight. This is what you say to somebody when you have a duel. We're going to have a fight, but we're going to fight up until either you die or I die. That's how much we're going to fight. Don't get worried, we're not really going to do that. Okay? So this is what a duel is. So they challenged, this guy challenged him to a duel, and he won the duel. So because he had killed this man, he thought to himself, the family of this man are going to come to me and they're going to say, you killed blah, 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 they're going to fight him. So he went to the ruler of Egypt and he said, can you get me out? And he met the wife of the ruler of Egypt. And she said, the only thing I could do for you is I could free you by sending you to Medina. Free you as a slave by sending you to Medina. Because my son is the governor of Medina. So she sent him to Medina. So now he's gone to Medina, right? So he went to Medina, the son, the governor of Medina, he said, why don't you join the Ottoman army? So he said, okay. So he joined the Ottoman army. So now he's become an Ottoman soldier, okay? In a few years, he rose through the ranks and he eventually became the treasurer of Medina. So all the Ottoman gold that was going into Medina was going through his hands. That has to be somebody who you really trust. So after that, one day when the governor of Medina was going on a journey, he said, I have to go on a journey. When you go on a journey, you make an interim governor, just for the time being. On the journey, before he went on the journey, he said, I will make Thomas Keith, whose name was now Ibrahim Aga, he will make him the governor, interim governor of Medina. On the journey, the governor actually died, right? So from behind, the people of Medina got together and they said, no, he is trustworthy, we'll make him the governor of Medina. So he became the governor of Medina and he died as the governor of Medina. And that's amazing for, not just because he was born in Scotland, he was a British soldier, prisoner of war in Egypt, then a slave, then a soldier, and then governor of Medina, right? That's shocking within its own self. There's a second reason why it's shocking. Which other place do you know in the world? Medina is the center of Islam. Which other city, major city, can you become the governor of after being a slave? In England, you have to be of an aristocratic family. In America or something, you have to be of a high family. Even in India and Pakistan and all these countries that you go for, the big families take these positions. A slave can never get to this station. But in Islam, Islam is so fair that look at how a slave got to this position. Okay? So I hope the children enjoyed that one. Okay? Okay, we're going to move on. So this person, his name is Robert Stanley. He never went on Hajj, but we've included him as a hero of Hajj. And there's a reason for that. Because it's not just him, there's two people. So what happened with him is Robert Rashid Stanley, he lived in a place called Stalybridge near Manchester. And he was a tea merchant, he was quite poor. He eventually got up to the point where he became quite wealthy, he had many children. But when he retired, and he became mayor twice of that city as well. When he retired at the age of 69 years old, he learnt about Islam. Nobody gave dawah to him. Nobody came to him and said, convert to Islam. Of his own conviction, of just reading about Islam, he realized that Islam is the truth. And he converted to Islam at the age of 69 years old. Yeah? And he would travel from Stalybridge in Manchester to Liverpool just to pray Jummah. Right? And what happened here is that when he died, they actually hid the fact that he was a Muslim. The family were feeling quite ashamed that he had converted to Islam. So they tried to hide this fact. When they hid it, it did hide away. For many years, only until 1999, nobody knew that he was a Muslim. Right? In 1999, his great-great-grandson, Brian, is an old man now in Manchester. He started looking into the family history and he found a topi, the fez, the Moroccan type of topi, right? He found that. He thought, this is odd. And then he found a clip with a moon and a star on it. And he was like, well, this is all weird. So he looked in and he found somebody being called Brother Rashid by William Quilliam, who was a very early Muslim during that time. So he became very intrigued as to why this is the case. So he looked into it and he found that his great-great-grandfather had actually been a Muslim. That is shocking for reason number one. Brian's son had converted to Islam in 1991 without knowing that his great-great-great-grandfather was a Muslim, right? So number one, it shows that no matter how much you try and extinguish the light of Allah, the light of guidance, you can't. The guidance will come. But the second amazing thing is, he converted to Islam in April 1898. April 1898. 100 years later, in April 1998, without knowing, his great-great-great-grandson was doing Hajj, right? So he's on Hajj in April 1998, and 100 years before, in April 1898, he had converted to Islam. And he didn't know that he's going on Hajj, and this amazing journey he's going to embark on. It was a life-changing experience for him. And 100 years ago, while he's stepping into Hajj, his grandfather 100 years ago a great-great-great-grandfather had converted to Islam. He only found out later. Yeah? So I thought this is an interesting fact, so we included it part of the exhibition. They're all alive, all the people I mentioned. They're all alive. So his great-great-great-granddaughter, who isn't a Muslim, she's writing a book about him. And Stephen, who is the great-great-great-grandson, who's a Muslim, he has a family, they're all Muslim family now, and he's an MP for Labour. Okay, next person. We've got these the wrong way around. Lord Stanley is before him. So, Lord Henry Stanley, no relation whatsoever. He's poor, he's rich, right? Lord Henry Stanley is the first British Muslim Lord. A lot of people think Lord Nazir Ahmed is the first British Muslim Lord. No, it's actually this guy, right? He was Muslim. So, he took an interest he was from a very, very big family, a very big family. He took an interest in Islam because he started learning about the languages and everything. And he learnt about various languages, including Arabic. And when he learnt Arabic, he obviously could now interpret what the Quran was saying, what some of the Islamic books were saying. He became interested. He asked his father, can he be stationed in the Ottoman Empire? So he went to Turkey. He became stationed there. He started learning the language, Arabic, and learning about Islam. His grandmother, his dadi, became very concerned. She said, he will go to their country. He's already fallen in love with this culture. He'll become a Muslim. She said he's liable to take the color of those he lives with. Alhamdulillah, her words came true. A few years later, he converted to Islam. When he converted, obviously he wanted to make Hajj. So he went back to England, came back to London for a couple of days, all the way from Turkey, came back, 2-3 days. He left his grandmother a note. Remember, the grandmother, she was in charge of the family finances, right? So he would have to tell her, I'm taking this much money for this reason. So he said, to lift a note for his grandmother, he said, I'm going to Jeddah because I want to rest. I want to go on a holiday to Jeddah. Now, who goes to holiday to Jeddah, right? Nobody. And even she clocked it, and she wrote him a letter back. She said, no, I know you are going on Hajj or you are going to Mecca, and I forbid you, right? And he had to lie. He said, no, I'm not going. And when he got there on the ship, because he had lived with the Turks for so long, he changed his appearance. And obviously he was white-skinned anyway, and Turks are light-skinned as well. He changed his appearance to look like a Turk. So when he came off the ship and he spoke like the Turks, nobody knew who he was. But when he went to Mecca, he lived there for about a few months. And about 4 months in, somebody recognized him. And they said, I know who you are. You're that Lord from England, Henry Stanley. And obviously it came out. Nowadays, obviously, we would pull out our phone and start recording it. Back then, they told the newspapers. When they told the newspapers, the English newspapers found out, big scandal in the newspapers, Muslim Lord seen in Mecca, dressed as a Muslim, right? Big scandal. So his mum wrote him a letter, and the mum wrote a letter saying, I command you to come back right now to England, and you better come dressed as an Englishman. Yeah. So this is the opposition he faced when he was converting to Islam. His father, his own dad, he said to him that Muslims are, I've got the quote here somewhere. His father wrote him a letter, and he said to him that the Muslims are semi-barbarians, stupid, illiterate, ignorant, tyrannical, and oppressive when they are in power, and they have this absurd religion that they follow. So much opposition from his own father. His brother said, if you think the Muslims are honorable, look at the racism, by the way. His brother was like a governor in India, yeah. And look at the racism which his brother is going to come out with. So he's ruling over the Indians at the time. He said, if you want to see how lowly Muslims can be, come to India and see how lowly a Muslim can be. So he's calling Indian Muslims quite lowly, and this is the racism with which they ruled, right? So despite all of this, his mum, his grandma, his brother, everybody was against him. He still converted to Islam. And when he became the Lord of these two places, he was the Lord. Back then, being a Lord was different. Now it's just you go sit in the House of Commons and fall asleep. But back then, it actually meant that you were like a ruler. And he actually forbade alcohol. So he closed down pubs. And then the people came to him and complained, and they said, why did you close down the pub? Right? Do you hate us because you're a Muslim? And he reminded them, and this shows us what he was like. He said, if I hated you, why is it when your churches break down that I fix them? Because Islam shows that tolerance. He said, I only find that when you drink, you become out of control and you harm each other. That's why. When he died, the people in his house and his friends, they say that he used to pray the Hajj every single night. And he died on the 25th night of Ramadan. Yeah. So to have that, being a Lord, being in such a high position, so much opposition, yet most of us have inherited Islam from our parents, and we don't have that care the same way someone who fights that battle to get it has. Okay? The next person, so too many men, so for the sisters we have some women as well. So Lady Evelyn was the wife of a lord, and she learned about Islam when she was very young. And when she heard about Islam, she thought to herself in her head. She didn't tell anyone. She just thought in her head, whatever this is, I believe it. What this is makes total sense. I believe what is being said here. Tawheed, Allah is one. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the last final messenger. All of these messages really resonated with her, that you only ask from Allah, etc. It made sense. Iman had entered her heart, but she hadn't uttered it. She didn't know how, right? She only heard about this religion. In her head, she thought, yeah, I am this Muslim. I am a Muslim. She never told anybody up until she got to the point where she met the Pope one day, because her family were Catholic. So one day she met the Pope, And the Pope asked her, "Are you Catholic?" And she replied, "No, I'm a Muslim." So her friends and family who were with her, they were like, "What?" And what a place to reveal it, right? So she revealed, and then she said, "Look, when I read about this, it entered my heart." Years later, she actually found out, how do I become a Muslim? And she read the Shahada. And when she was very old, she was in her 60s, and she went on Hajj, right? When her husband had passed away. And then she wrote this book. And this book, by the way, I recommend it. You can buy it from Amazon or wherever. Honestly, it's such a well-written book on Hajj. And you know, when you read it and you think about when you went on Hajj, she really does explain it really well, what that feeling is like. And we've got an excerpt there as well. But I also want to show you one more thing, especially for the sisters. A lot of the time, the right wing in this country, they'll say to us that niqab is a new thing in this country, right? Yeah, niqab is a new thing in this country, right? So the face veil is a new thing, and you bring in this new thing over. It's not been there for many years. It's just this new thing, and they say all of this stuff. So this is especially as an answer to them. There is Lady Evelyn wearing niqab in 1930, right? So that's there in the book, so you can have a look for yourself. Okay? Behind the veil. Yeah, behind the niqab. Yeah. So we thought we'd include that as well. And again, we've got another lady now, her name is Irene Wentworth Fitzwilliam. If anybody knows who Jacob Rees-Mogg is, does anybody know Jacob Rees-Mogg? He's from this family. So this family is a very, very high aristocratic family. So I've included her family tree here for you to have a look at. You can see her father is an MP. Her mother is a lady in waiting to the Duchess of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which is the royal family. Her parents are, earls or marquises, and from the father's side, you've got earls and countesses, etc. Right? A very, very, very high up family in aristocracy. She debuted into society at the age of 19 at a party thrown by the king and queen. Right? So she mixed with the creme de la creme of society. Right? And this is who she was. She was just a socialite who was constantly with the upper echelons of society. But when she heard about Islam, she converted straight away. And she knew that she would stop getting invited to these parties. She would stop rubbing shoulders with the powerful. It didn't matter to her. And she continued. And she converted to Islam. And she went on Hajj as well. But that was after Lady Evelyn. And again, her journey of Hajj. So people might think, why have all of the people I'm speaking about, their books are in the middle here. This book is not written by anybody here, but it includes an account by Aisha Wentworth Fitzwilliam. And it's where I've folded the page. So you can have a look where the fold of the page is, and you can read her account of what she found on Hajj. And rightly so, she says that every person in the world desires world peace. But she says the only place that world peace is found is in Arafat. And that's something true when you go on Hajj. That's exactly the case. You see peace there. The next person, for anybody who's from Pakistan, you might recognize this guy. Not as that photograph, because here he's young, right? But I'll explain who he is. He was born an Austrian-Hungarian Jew. He was born as an Austrian-Hungarian Jew. He learnt about languages. He became very interested in Islam. When he realized it's the truth, he converted to Islam. When he converted to Islam, he faced a lot of opposition, naturally. So he decided, you know what, forget this, I'm going. He moved to Mecca, the heart of Islam. He said, I'm just moving there. So he moved to Mecca in the year 1930 or something, right? When he moved there, he lived there for 6 years, during which time he completed 5 Hajj. And he became very close to King Abdulaziz, the founder of Saudi Arabia. And when for example, he became such a proper member of Meccan society that King Abdulaziz actually trusted him with a secret mission. He needed somebody of white complexion to infiltrate an organization. So there was an organization, a terrorist organization at the time, what we would call now a terrorist organization, but they were rebels, right? And they would attack Masjid Haram, or they would attack their name was Al-Ikhwan. Don't confuse that with Ikhwan al-Muslimin, that's something else totally later. Al-Ikhwan, they called themselves, and they would attack and they would do this. King Abdulaziz couldn't figure out why is it that these guys just have so much money that they can keep buying guns and whatnot and keep attacking us. So he asked Leopold Weiss, who had now changed the name to Muhammad Asad, because Leo means lion and Asad means lion, right? So he changed his name, and he asked him to infiltrate the organization, and he successfully did. And he tracked down that the payments were actually to Al-Ikhwan, to this terrorist organization. The payments were coming from the British. So they were trying to cause a war in the Arab countries like this. So he had this contribution. Eventually, one day, he decided he wanted to go to India and see India as well. When he was in India, he met Allama Iqbal, who many people from India and Pakistan will know, one of the forefathers of Pakistan, who had the idea behind Pakistan. He met Allama Iqbal. And Allama Iqbal said to him, we need people like you in our country, Pakistan. When we're making Pakistan, we need to have educated people who will come and make this country as a country, right? So he promised him, he said, yes, when Pakistan is made, I will come. So Allama Iqbal, as many of you might know, Allama Iqbal actually passed away before Pakistan was made. But he kept his promise to Allama Iqbal. And when Pakistan was formed, he became one of the first Pakistani citizens. Yeah? Born an Austrian-Hungarian Jew, then became part of Saudi Arabian society as a Muslim, and then he became a Pakistani, right? And a lot of people don't recognize him, but I showed, for example, when I was showing my mum and dad, this guy, he used to be on radio all the time in Pakistan in the 50s and the 60s, and the 70s as well. All the time he's on radio and TV. If you go, Muhammad Asad, yeah, so if you go on YouTube and you write his name in, you'll see him old. But obviously, he's born in the year 1900. So in the 60s and 70s, he's old. Over here, he's about 18 years old, right? So obviously, his looks are very different. When I was telling my parents about this, they were like, we don't know who he is. Then I showed them the YouTube video. They said, yes, we've seen him when we were children. So obviously, he looks very different. He talks in English and Urdu as well. Eventually, he became very upset with Pakistan, and he moved to Spain. His wife was a convert to Islam, Austrian-Hungarian Christian, who converted to Islam, and she couldn't get a visa to Pakistan. So he became a minister for Pakistan. He was the envoy to the UN. He served Pakistan in government as well. And he said, and I can't get a visa for my wife, this is ridiculous. So he moved away. He only came back once when General Zia-ul-Haq rewrote the constitution. He came back to review it at the invitation of General Zia-ul-Haq because he was an Islamic scholar as well. So yeah, that's interesting, but he's buried in Granada in the ancient Muslim graveyard in Granada of Muslims. He's buried there, okay? So there's an interesting story. Now, is there anyone who doesn't know who Malcolm X is? I was gonna say, get out. I think everybody knows, even more than Imam Bukhari, I think people know who Malcolm X is. So Malcolm X, for those of you who don't know much about his story, lived in a time not so long ago in America when the white people of America felt that black people are inferior to them, right? So this was an unfortunate racism that existed. In reaction to this, there was a group that was formed called the Nation of Islam. Nothing to do with Islam whatsoever. They believed in another prophet after the Prophet ﷺ, Elijah Muhammad. They had nothing to do with Islam. But they believed that black people are better than white people. In reaction to white people being better than black people, their reaction was black people are better than white people. It doesn't solve the problem. Malcolm X then realized that this person, this Elijah Muhammad, he doesn't have the qualities that he claims to have. He was a bad person. When he clued on, alhamdulillah, he converted to Sunni Islam. He became a Muslim, right, away from this Nation of Islam nonsense. So he became a Muslim. But he felt very lost. And he was very public that he left them, very, very public. King Faisal at the time wrote him a letter and said, why don't you come on Hajj? And he thought this is so relevant to him because he said, now I can go and, find this. He felt so lost. He could find that meaning of life. When he went on Hajj, for the first time in his life, he saw black people, white people, Asian people, everybody was equal. No racism, no difference. And if anybody's been on Hajj, you'll see that. There's no difference. Everyone's there just for Allah. And he saw this. When he saw this, he came back to America. And he said that if America wants to fix the problem of racism, then they should follow the example of Islam. Yeah? Because we find in Islam, when you find racism in Islam, it is also always because of culture. It's never because of Islam, right? So his biography is there in front of you, but we also have a very special treat. We have his first ever edition, the first paperback edition and the first hardback edition. Both are over there. We're going to have a look at them in a minute, right? Of his autobiography. So that's Malcolm X. Now coming on to this last person, I'm going to just turn this around so the brothers can see. Maybe actually if the sisters shuffle up a little bit, maybe some brothers can make their way in a bit more. So this person here, his name is actually Mota Beal. Mota Beal. He's a rapper, right? He was a rapper. His rap name, so rappers have different names to their names, right? So for those of you who don't know, rap music is a type of music in which they kind of rhyme and they have music in the background, kind of a gangster kind of music, right? The greatest person in rap music was Tupac, this guy called Tupac, and Napoleon was part of his group, right? His rap name is Napoleon, as I said. So let's take his story right to the beginning. He has a very interesting story. When he was only 3 years old, he witnessed his parents being killed in front of him. A family friend of theirs had a disagreement with his father, came to the house, and he shot the father at point blank range over the heart, right? So the father just dropped dead. Yeah? Then as the mother saw this, the mother of Mota Beal, when she saw this happening, she knew the guy is going to shoot her. She had 3 children. One was 5 years old, one was 3, and one was a baby. She picked up all 3 children and she started running, and he started shooting at her, right? And as she ran off, she hid the baby in the kitchen drawer. She hid Mota in the kitchen cabinet. And through the crack of the cabinet, he could see everything that was going on. He was running after her, shooting her. And she hid the last child, and she took 18 bullets to kill her. Yeah? He says himself, my father, it took 1 bullet. But the power of a mother trying to protect her children, 18 bullets. The man says, if I had more bullets that day, the bullets ran out that day. He said, if I had more bullets that day, I would have shot and killed all 3 children. So he left. Now the children came out of hiding. At the age of 6 months old, 3 years old, 5 years old, they didn't know what to do. So they came out and they spent 2 days with the dead bodies of their parents, not knowing what to do. Very traumatic, right? And eventually, society was cruel on him even more. He ended up not getting any support from society. He ended up, by the age of 12, he was hustling drugs on the street. Eventually, he was cultivating this skill in rap music. He met this guy, Tupac, who took him under his wing. This story that I just told you here, and he told to Tupac, so just for anyone who might be influenced by rap music and think that, they are as hard as they claim they are. When he told Tupac this story that I just told you, Tupac started crying. And a lot of the time, these people show that they're very hard and etc., but he cried when he heard that story. Many years later, unfortunately, Tupac didn't convert to Islam. He had a Quran, and he was reading the Quran, and he was very much influenced. Later on in life, Tupac was influenced by Islam as well. But he was shot down. These guys lived by the gun, right? This is just the life. They're within the hood. They live by the gun. And Tupac died in a gunfight. Years after Tupac had died, Mota Beal was in a recording studio, and he was recording some rap music, and there was someone else there, and they started getting in each other's faces and getting into this altercation kind of thing. And when an altercation happened in the hood, the gun came out straight away. Luckily, there was another guy in between, and he was a Muslim, and he got between them both and said, no, calm down, right? He calmed the situation down with a lot of guidance and in a really nice way. He calmed it all down. Mota says, I knew that was going to end up in some sort of me being killed or him being killed, right? So he felt like he owed the Muslim something, the Muslim friend. The Muslim friend said to him, if I want you to do one thing for me. Come to the masjid on Friday. That's it. That's it. Just come to the masjid on Friday. Because the guy who had killed his parents were Nation of Islam, he thought Islam, Nation of Islam, same thing. He was like, okay, whatever, I'll go, right? When he got there, he realized two different things. And he says when he left the house at the time, he was very popular. He had a mansion on a private road behind a gate. He said he had only last week before that, he had purchased a brand new car. He says, I rolled up in my car, I thought all eyes are going to be on me. He goes, but I got there and everyone's rushing to Jummah because it's nearly Jummah time, right? And nobody cared that he's there. And he found that odd. So he went inside and he watched these people praying. And then they met each other with smiles and happy. And for the first time in his life, he had seen this type of behavior, like people acting so nice towards each other. All he's used to is fighting and this and that, right? So he became very intrigued. And when he asked his friend a few questions, his friend said to him, look, just do one thing. His Muslim friend said to him, do one thing. Here's the carpet of the masjid. Bow down. Here's how you do sajda. Do sajda now. And when you're down there, know that you are alone with Allah. Whatever you want to ask from God, ask it there. So Mota now is being very intrigued now. So he thinks to himself, there's no harm in trying. Let me give it a go. So he put his head down on the floor as he had showed him. Mota says, the minute my head touched the ground, he goes, I felt peace for the first time in my life. Never felt it before that. So he says, I knew straight away this is the truth. He started researching about Islam. And in the same year, in 2001, I think December, he went and then 2002, he converted to Islam. The same year he went on Hajj. Straight away he said, I want to go on Hajj. He has seen these pictures and whatnot. There's a funny interview of him on YouTube where he's going around. He's like, still like the rapper, like talking like that. I want to go on Hajj, like, in that way. Anyway, he went on Hajj and he changed himself completely. Now, many years later, just a few years ago, one of his friends from the old days when he used to be a gangster, one of his friends from those days was in jail, right? He was in jail and he got transferred to the same jail where the guy who killed his parents was. So his friend from the old times saw the murderer of Mota's parents. He saw him in jail, but he didn't let it on. He just, okay, I know who he is, right? So he arranged for a knife, the friend. As a friend, he said, I'm going to do my friend a service. I'm going to kill him. So he arranged for a knife. Then, to show off, to be proud, he called up Mota. He got a message to him. He said, let me tell you one thing. Get a message to Mu. That's what they used to call it. Get a message to Mu. Today, I'm going to avenge the death of his parents. I'm going to kill the man that killed his parents. Yeah? That's the message he left. Mota, who, by the way, was called Napoleon because he used to be angry all the time. He was always angry. So they called him Napoleon because Napoleon used to be angry all the time, right? The king. And so this guy, Napoleon, who used to be angry all the time, he's received a phone call on his phone saying that tonight, the man who killed your parents would have killed you as well had he bullets. Gunned your mom down like the way he did. He is going to get killed tonight, right? But Muta's now Muslim, and you can't take law into your own hands. You can't kill people. You can't take a life. So he picked up the phone. He dialed the prison. He said, that man, get him out of the jail. He's going to get killed tonight. So they transferred him. And he saved the life of the man who had killed his parents in that way. And that's Islam. Yeah? So Mota is actually a friend. He's a friend of mine. So he sent a video for you all. So if you want to watch his video. Is it loading? It's loading, it's fine.
Yeah, hold on, let's make sure the volume's on.
Does it come from the bottom, yeah?
No, here, on the left. Last side.
Yeah, it's still loading.
Loading it.
Welcome to Hajj exhibition. My name is Mota Beal, and I hope you guys enjoyed the exhibition. Alhamdulillah, all praise due to Allah for guiding me to the religion of Islam. I accepted the religion of Islam 16 years ago. And one of the first things that I wanted to do was to visit the holy lands of Mecca, Medina. A few months after accepting the religion of Islam, I was honored and I was able to travel to Mecca and Medina for Hajj pilgrimage. When I got to Mecca, I was amazed when I seen the Kaaba. Words couldn't explain, words cannot express my feeling when I first laid eyes on the Kaaba, because I was reading about the Kaaba in the books and the stories of the Prophet, and it changed my life. It changed my life. I went back to America as a different person by Allah's permission. And I advise everyone to go to Hajj if they're able to. If you have the money and you have the health, to go to Hajj as soon as possible. Thanks once again, and may Allah allow all of us to experience the Hajj pilgrimage and accept it from us.
Okay, there's a special video for you all. He said, welcome to Exhibition Hajj. It's for you. Okay, so at this point, I just want to tell you one thing about who we are. Before we carry on, there's very little left of the exhibition. There's about some very interesting stuff about the color of the Kaaba before in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, what color the Kaaba was in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and where the grave of the Prophet ﷺ is and stuff. We're about to get onto that in 1 minute. So we're from a company called Hujaj.co, and we have given this exhibition out to various masajid up and down the country for free. So we do this exhibition and the tour and everything. We set it up everything for free. This is all for free. This is part of our goal with Hajj, which is to make Hajj more understandable and accessible for people. A lot of times when people want to go on Hajj, they're totally confused. So we created a Hajj comparison website for Hajj so that they can get visibility. Most of the time when you go on Hajj, you basically just go to your local high street and just ask them, who should I go on Hajj with? And they'll just tell you, and you won't have much choice. This way, there might be an agent in Slough who's the best, but now you know, right? But there might be an agent in London or Birmingham which provides that specific thing you're after. So we created a Hajj comparison website, which again is completely free to use. We also produce resources. So there's where it says start your journey of a lifetime here, over there, and by the fire exit, there is a Hajj guide. On the inside of it, there's the basic du'as of Hajj and what to pack for Hajj, a very basic Hajj guide. We produce stuff like that and we give that out for free as well. We have a YouTube channel called Hujaj.co, where we teach people how to tie ihram, where we teach people how to do this and that. And the reason why we did this is because when me and Tayyab went on Hajj, Tayyab, put your hand up so everyone knows who you are. There's Tayyab. Tayyab and me set the company up. When we went on Hajj, we were totally confused. And we went with somebody who we thought was the best provider in the UK, right? Because we just wanted the best. And we had a rubbish experience. So sometimes the so-called best is not the best. So when we got back, we started hacking this problem. How can you figure out what's what? So alhamdulillah, we've made this website. We give free and independent advice as well. You want advice on something, you call us. We will give it absolutely free. And there's no charge. My card is over there as well. You can take it. You can WhatsApp me as well. And you can demo the website on there as well. I just want to tell you about one more thing actually. We did a survey last year, and it's continuing this year, but I'll tell you before we release the results of the survey, it's going to be in the media, inshallah. After this Hajj, it's going to go into the media and you'll hear about it on the news. But by the way, the TV is about to turn off, Umar. Okay. So there was a survey that's done, right, we did last year and we're going to continue it this year as well. But what we found is half of the people who are going on Hajj came back saying they are not happy with the service that they were given. That is a serious accusation for half of an industry to not be happy. Yeah, but that's a fact. So we started looking at the reason why. And we found that there was about 4 reasons why. Number one is there's very few people who actually fall into this category, but number one was people who fall for Hajj fraud. So in Birmingham, for example, where I live, there was a Hajj agent who set up on Coventry Road in Birmingham. He sold 79 Hajj packages at £3,500, right? And, gave them a ticket. Here you go, you're going on this date, everything. These people got happy. We're going on Hajj. They called their family, I'm going on Hajj, you need anything, make dua for me, I'll make dua for you. They put the ihram on, got to the airport, sorry, that's a fake ticket. They're calling the guy and the phone's off. Very few people do this, but there's still 79 people who I had to then deal with to try and rescue them somehow. And there's nothing you could do because the guy's gone off the radar, right? So this is one problem. that's the most serious problem. The second problem is many times Hajj agents will promise things that they can't deliver. Right? 5-star package, this, and then you get there and it's a 3-star. Good agents won't do this. So what we found is sometimes this is the fault of the Haji themselves, and sometimes this is the fault of the Hajj agent. Because sometimes the Hajj agent is like, no, we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you. And sometimes people are expecting a little too much from the Hajj agent. So what we've done on Hujjaj.co is we've actually created almost like a contract system. So an itinerary that you all agree to, both parties agree to, and if it's not in there, it's not in there. If it is in there, you're going to get it. So if the agent goes against that, then yes, it's clear. But if the agent hasn't promised it there, then you know not to get it. So we do this, and we do that for free as well. But I don't do that. So this is the second thing we found. The third problem we found is that a lot of the time we found that people were quite annoyed with the fact that when they went on Hajj, for example, they went on a 12-day package or a 14-day package, and it was a lot more expensive than the 1-month package. How does it make sense that you're in a 5-star hotel for so much longer, but you're paying less for that than you are? It makes no sense, right? So people were annoyed about that as well. And the reason for that is some of the Hajj agents who do these special packages, they were only taking advantage of the fact that a lot of working people can pay more. So they put the price up for that. And the last, well, they helped me out. What was the last thing that we found? What was it there? The last thing that we found out in the survey, I can't remember now what it was, why people got upset. So there was the fraud, then there was not giving what they promised, then there was the price differences. There was one more. I'm going to have to look at my notes, but there was one more anyway. But yeah, so we found this, and visibility, that's what it is, visibility. That they went on Hajj, then next year they came back and the chacha or somebody said, that so-and-so was cheaper. So they were like, oh, I should have gone with him. And again, this is unfair because the Hajj agent did his job. You know? So we solved all of these problems by giving visibility in the market, by having this contract system, by having this obvious competition going on in the market as well. Anybody on our website has the correct, relevant accreditations. They have to be ATO protected. They have to be Ministry of Hajj approved, etc., etc. They will have to have these accreditations. They will have to prove these things to us. So inshallah, the chances of fraud are a lot lower when you come to us. We don't take anybody on Hajj. So before anybody asks, can you take me on Hajj? We don't take anybody on Hajj at all. Okay? So we want to carry on with the exhibition over here. Actually, before we move, I'm going to stand over here and I'm going to block this so you can all see. If you guys want to just come around this way. Okay, I'm going to ask a question. Right, so the kiswa at the moment, do you remember what a kiswa is? It's the cloth on the Kaaba, yeah? The kiswa at the moment is black. What color was it in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Was it white? Good guess. Red and white. Good. Green? Everyone always guesses green. Who guessed green? Are you Pakistani?
I was
Till the World Cup loss. All right, any other guesses? Green and white, like the Pakistan flag. Okay, so the kiswa in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was red and white. The sister got it right, spot on, red and white stripes. So we've done a Photoshop over here to show it. Please don't take a photo and put it online. A photo from the time of the Prophet. It's not. It's just a Photoshop, just to show if they did that today, what it might look like. Red and white stripes. Yeah. And then in the time of Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman, radiallahu anhu, it went white. In the time of Abdullah bin Zubayr and Muawiyah, radiallahu anhu, it went red. At one point, it became yellow gold as well, which is there. And it only became green once. Every time I do an exhibition, someone always says green. But it only was green once in history. They must have chosen a horrible shade of green, because once it went green, the people of Makkah hated it. So they went to the Khalifa and they said, we don't like this, what you've done, please change it. So he changed it to black. And since then it's been black. Yeah, black and gold must have looked amazing like it does now compared to everything else. So it's always stayed that color since then. So the kiswa, how often is the kiswa changed? Shout out your answer. Once a year. What day? Hajj time. What day during Hajj time? 9th of Dhul Hijjah. Is he right? He is. On the day of Arafat, they change it. Because everyone's busy over there, they change it, right? But this has not always been the case. This has not always been the case. They used to change it at different times. In the time of Abdullah bin Zubayr, they changed it twice a year. In the time of one Khalifa called Ma'mun, they changed it 3 times a year. So he used to have a bit of fun with it. So in Ramadan, he would make it one color. In Dhul Hijjah, he'd make it another color. And then for the rest of the year, he'd have it as another color. Red brocade, red and white. That's the colors he used to swap between, right? And during the time of, at one point, they stopped taking the old kiswa off. They started just piling more on top. Then one Khalifa saw that the Kaaba, he went inside the Kaaba, he saw it's under a lot of stress. He said, no, the old one has to come off for the new one to come on. And we followed that ever since then. Okay, so that's that. Let's see if I have any interesting things to show you. On this side, when you come to this side, the sisters can see, the sisters can see there was a renovation. Brothers, you'll see in a bit. First, the brothers got a chance, so now the sisters will get a chance. Over here, you can see the, in 1995, there was a big renovation of the Kaaba. So they actually covered it with a white barrier. They went down to the foundations of the Kaaba. They went down to right down, yeah? And they covered it in a white wall. The reason for this is because the actual core was rotting. Everything was rotting, right? You can see in the bottom picture here of the pillars are rotting away as well. So they got down to the foundation, which you can see here. When they got down to the foundations, they found, the builders, they found that the foundations of the Kaaba did this. Yeah, this kind of thing. Yeah, this like the back of a wavy, like the hump of a camel. They didn't know what they were looking at, right? So they called one of the muftis of Makkah. His name is Sheikh Wasiullah Abbas. I know him. He told me this. They called him, and they said, we don't know what we're looking at. So Sheikh Wasiullah, he went down, he had a look, and he found this wavy pattern was the same wavy pattern that comes in the hadith. In the time of Abdullah bin Zubayr, when they extended the Kaaba to look like this, so if you extend the Kaaba out, this is how it would look. In the time of Ibrahim al-Islam, it was like this. Yeah? So in the time of Abdullah bin Zubayr, he actually extended it. Right? When they dug down to the foundations of the Kaaba, they found in the time of Abdullah bin Zubayr that it was like that as well. The Sahaba at that time said, these are the foundations of Ibrahim al-Islam that Ibrahim al-Islam laid. Those same foundations, the Mufti of Makkah, Wasiullah Abbas, he found as well today. The Kaaba stands on those foundations today. Okay? That's an interesting fact for you. The Kaaba still stands on those interesting, on those foundations. A point to be made about the, so they can see. Just move here next to me. A point to be made about this extension is the Prophet ﷺ desired, when he moved to Makkah, he desired to extend the Kaaba to make it nice and big like this, right? But he said because the people of Makkah had just come out of Jahiliyyah, the Prophet ﷺ said, I don't want to change too much, so he kept it as it is with the semicircle. The reason it's built like that, as it is now, is because the Quraysh, when they made it, they didn't have enough halal money to make the Kaaba full. So they made it so much, and then they made a wall to show this is part of the Kaaba as well, which is what we see today, the hatim, the semicircle, yeah? Then Abdullah bin Zubayr said, because the Prophet ﷺ had desired to make it large again, he did, and the Prophet ﷺ desired to make the door come down, and the back door, and a window. Okay, so there's a door down, there's a door there, and a door on the back. If you go on Hajj now, they're not showing it at the moment, you'll see on the back of the Kaaba, the back wall of the Kaaba, you'll see the outline of a door. They've kept that there just to show you that there could be a door here. But what happened was, because Abdullah bin Zubayr extended it, then the Khalifa of the time, what's his name? Hajj bin Yusuf, sorry, it escaped my mind. Hajj bin Yusuf hated Abdullah bin Zubayr, so he changed the Kaaba back to the old shape. Then the next king came and he changed it, made it big again. Then the next one came, made it small, then big, then small. Then the ulama of the time got together and they said, you know what? The Kaaba isn't a joke, it's not a toy. Keep it as it is forever now. And it's the shape that we can see today. And it's been like that since then. Okay, over here, some interesting pictures, some more historical pictures. There's fencing up around the Kaaba while there was renovation going on the roof of the Kaaba. And there's King Faisal working on renovation of the Kaaba himself. So even kings will work on this. Over here, we've got a picture of inside of the Kaaba. So if you just move that way over there. You can see, these are the pillars of the Kaaba here. And inside you have the kiswa. The gold kiswa we've got over there is where this green one is right now. That used to hang inside over there, okay? And there's marble and all the things are preserved in there. What you can see here, the reason we included this photograph, this white masalla type of thing here, yeah? This white masalla is when the Prophet ﷺ came into the Kaaba, he prayed here. So they made a masalla. This is the only photo that exists of it, okay? That he prayed right there. So the Prophet ﷺ prayed right there. So they made a masalla to show where the Prophet ﷺ prayed. This is when you walk into the Kaaba from the door, it's the wall right in front of you. Okay? Is there anything else there? No. I haven't been in there, no. I've been in a way because I've been in the Hatim, innit? So there's wisdom there, isn't there? Then now the people can go in technically inside the Kaaba, otherwise who knows, we would have not been able to go in. Now in the Hatim, you are inside the Kaaba. And you can pray inside the Kaaba by being in the Hatim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk that way and I'm going to show the stuff that's in there. So sisters, if you want to go to my left, right? And brothers, if you want to come in close to me, and does the sisters want to have a look first because you're on that side? So if you come and I'll move right back, I'll show you what we've got here. What we've got is, we've got some old travel documentation. So here what we've got is, we've got old passports of people who used to go on Hajj, family passports, a Pakistani Hajj passport. This is specifically called a Hajj passport, coach ticket to Hajj. This is the oldest photograph. I said I would tell you when something is non-original. These two pieces are not original. That's a replica, I believe. It was sold to us as original, but I don't believe it's original. That's a mule transport license. If you want to take anything into Masjid Haram or anything, you had to have a license. That the Ottomans used to have that license. Here is the oldest photograph in 1884 of the Hajj. Does anyone want to hear the first recording of Masjid Haram? Dave, have you got it? Right, so does anyone want to hear the first audio recording of Masjid Haram? Yeah? Okay, just give me 1 minute to load it up then. What year is it? 1884.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى.
You can hear the wax cylinder in the background recording it. And the same person who took these photos had that as well. So I'll play one more ayah.
ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى.
Okay, so that's the first ever audio recording from Masjid Haram. Okay, so what you're looking at over there in that one is one of the oldest photographs of Masjid al-Aqsa. There's a photograph there from 1899. At the top, the postcard is from 1899. It was posted in 1903. Next to it, you can see, you see where the postcard is? Next to that, you've got a newspaper. That newspaper shows Masjid al-Aqsa in the year I can't remember the year, 1892, yeah. So that's one of the earliest photographs of Masjid al-Aqsa as well. Underneath, you've got some very rare accounts. Thomas Keith, who I spoke about, there's a book written about him at the bottom right. There's a book there called The History of the Saracens from the 1700s. And then you've got a book over there as well. Next to that over there, so sisters, if you could just move along so the brothers can catch up. Next to it over there, you've got Malcolm X's first ever written autobiography, the first publication of it in the hardback and the paperback. At the bottom, you'll be able to see a photograph, very rare. I don't think anybody's ever seen this photograph ever before, and you're the first exhibition where we're showing it. It's a photograph of the King Faisal's son, Abdullah Faisal, and Muhammad Ali on Hajj together, after Hajj. And above it, at the top, guys, I'm having to shout if everybody could just calm down a little bit. Okay, at the top over there, you can see where it has King Abdulaziz's photo, above Malcolm X, yeah. Just there, you can see that's the first ever movie that was produced on Hajj. King Abdulaziz commissioned it in 1932. TVs didn't exist, so you had to go to the cinema to watch it, right? So that was what you would get. That's an original piece of what you would get when you walked into the cinema. That would be what you were given, and you would see what you're going to watch and see it from there. Children, if you could just go there, I want you to guess something. Sisters, if you could just move down a little bit, I want to ask the little children a question, hopefully to make everyone feel old. Kids, what's this here? What are these?
CDs, the Qurans.
Those things there. What are they? Those things.
Tapes.
Tapes, okay. So hopefully that makes you feel really old, because these kids don't even know what that is, right? So back in the day, when we were young, they're the videos that we used to watch, okay? Now we have DVDs and YouTube. Okay, we've got two things left in the exhibition. One is that the sisters are looking at. Bulugh al-Maram in the bottom left, that's written, that was printed in 1883, obviously written a lot before that. The top, you've got a book called Mukhtasar Dalil al-Hajj in 1960. First book that I could find, that there is the first book that I could find which introduced pictures of, like nowadays you have a guide of Hajj, and the guide of Hajj will always have pictures. That book was probably the first time they had that idea. You got Tafsir Jalalain written by Imam Suyuti and his teacher, both named Jalal. That's why Jalalain, two Jalals. A very early book there, Hadith Ibn Hisham. Okay, the last section is over here, guys, if you could just make your way. Sisters, you can stay there, I suppose. I'll turn this around so you can see. Brothers, if you could come to this side. I'm going to show you how the Prophet ﷺ's grave is arranged. Okay, guys can come in and... Okay, can you all see this? Can everybody see this, yeah? Okay. So, the brothers, when we go to do salam to the Prophet ﷺ, when we go to Medina, we come in from Babu Salam, which is here, and then we walk through, and we have Riyadul Jannah here. And then we say salam to the Prophet here, at the viewing halls. Sisters, people always ask me, where do the sisters come in from? I have no idea, I've never been as a sister. I wouldn't know. I think they come in from the back, I don't know. Gate 20, which is back here, isn't it? So they would come in from there, right? But the brothers, we come in from Babu Salam and then Riyadul Jannah here. When you say salam to the Prophet here, you're 10 feet away from the Prophet. And the Prophet's face is directly, exactly where that viewing hall is. He's facing that way because the Qibla is that way. When you die, you're buried facing Makkah. The Prophet is on his side, facing that way. And you are facing that way, and you say salam to the Prophet there. Okay? The next one is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who is behind the Prophet over here. Yeah? And then is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Abu Bakr here and Umar radiallahu anhu here. And the same with them as well. Okay? Now, how do you get in? Right? Nobody goes in, even the governor of Medina, he goes in once a year to clean it. That's it. So not many people go in. But the way in, there's a door over here. And in this, there's an entrance. You enter the door, you go through, and you'll notice a large, if you were to open this door, you'll notice a large bed. It's like a 4-poster bed. The people say this is the bed of Fatima radiallahu anha. This is very, very unlikely, because Fatima radiallahu anha lived a very simple existence. Sorry, man, I'm going to get my water. Fatima radiallahu anha lived a very simple life. It's unlikely that this bed belonged to her. Some people say it's her grave. That is also incorrect. Whatever it is, it's an old thing which they've just left there. They've left a lot of what's there. Kids, if you can calm down a little bit. Then there's 2 ways of walking in, from here and here. These are in line as well. You walk in from here, and you can walk all the way around this weird structure. It's in a kind of pentagonal shape. They're in line with the Prophet's head and Abu Bakr and Umar as well, the same as this. From here, there is one door in. From what I've heard, there's one door into this wall that they made. But beyond that wall is quite close, right, to the second wall. This wall here is completely sealed. There's no way in, except the ceiling, because there's no roof over this part. So if you wanted to get in, you would need a ladder, and a ladder on the other side. And that wall is pentagonal. It's a pentagon. Now you're gonna have to come around that way. Sorry. If you could come in, sister. I think there's a brother trying to come in. The reason it's shaped like this is before this structure used to exist only, this one here. And that's a square. And they used to put a kiswa on it. And people, obviously being ignorant, they would come from Makkah, and they would start doing tawaf around it. Yeah? So Umar bin Abdul Aziz noticed this, so he made this weird structure to make it look very different from the Kaaba, and to make people stop praying towards it, he made this structure as well. Okay? Then inside you have this. After this you have another wall. This wall is built by Nuruddin Zengi. It's built out of black stone. The bricks are like really, really thick, made out of black stone and lead as well, metal. They put metal in there. The reason was because Nuruddin Zengi, in his time, somebody tried to steal the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? Yeah? And because of that, they completely sealed it off. They put this huge wall in, and they made a roof over it as well. Yeah? Later, the Mamluks came and put a dome on top as well. So there's not the green dome. There's a dome inside as well, a small silver dome. If you wanted to go in, there's a viewing hole in the dome, but the wall is completely sealed. There is an area that you could go towards the bottom of it where you could break it to get in, where it's weaker. So you wouldn't, where the black stone and the metal is weaker, so you could break towards the bottom and you could get in. But it's only a manhole, right? In case of emergencies. Nobody's ever been, by the way, 600-700 or something like that, right? Years. After that, you have a very simple wooden structure with a roof over it that does have a manhole in it. Over there, here, you have a ledge. And if you stepped onto the ledge, you'd then step onto the ground, and that is the soil on which the Prophet ﷺ is buried. Online, you get a lot of photographs of these huge mazar and graves, and they say, this is the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. It's not at all. The Prophet ﷺ is buried in simple soil. And it's a very, very simple grave. And nobody's been in for hundreds of years. So there would never be a photograph of it, right? So that's what you would see if you went in. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so there's several walls in order to get in. That's what I was going to say. There was a wall here. So this is actually the Prophet. When a prophet dies, they are buried wherever they passed away, right? So the Prophet ﷺ was buried in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha, because that's where he passed away. And then that area, that room where he was buried, was basically sealed off. You could open the door, but that was basically sealed off. Approximately many years after the Prophet ﷺ, the wall, after Aisha radiallahu anha as well, this wall here that existed on the house of Aisha radhiyallahu anha, that wall became really weak and it was about to fall down. So what the people of the time decided is, let's rebuild it and make it strong again, right? So they got about rebuilding it, and they did a renovation, and they rebuilt this wall here. Oh, move it out so you guys can see as well. So they rebuilt this wall here. That was on the house of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. Yeah? And what ended up happening was, when they were digging the foundations of this wall, they saw 2 feet come out from the soil. And it looked like it had color. The feet had color in them. And a dead body can only have some level of color if it has been dead on the same day or died the night before. So when these 2 feet came out, the people said somebody messed around. Because we were doing this renovation, somebody's quickly come and buried their family member. Yeah, obviously they must have quickly come in overnight, quickly buried their family member and gone. So they said, we need to figure out who this is, because we can see the feet, and Arabs are good at feet like we are with fingerprints. Arabs are good with feet. So they called the people who identify feet, and they said, whose feet are these? So they called the expert who sees everyone's feet, and the expert said, sorry, I've never seen this. I've never seen these feet. So they called the older ones, and they said, we've never seen these feet either. So they thought, how can this be? How can it be that they had never seen these feet? So there was only 2 Sahaba left alive at the time. This is how late on we're talking, right? Only 2 Sahaba, one could walk. So he managed to walk with a stick, and he came really slowly to the masjid, and he looked at the feet. They said, do you recognize them? He said, by Allah, I swear by Allah, these are the feet of Umar radiallahu anhu, who had been dead for decades. Yeah? Not only was Umar radiallahu anhu a shaheed, he was also a Sahabi. So it shows the actual level of a Sahabi and the level of a shaheed as well. So this is, hopefully when you go next time, you'll have more of an appreciation. Sorry? No, then they reburied them. Yeah, they reburied them. This was centuries ago, right? This was in the time of the Sahaba. So they reburied them, not realizing what it was, and they then built the wall again, and they completely sealed it up, as I said. And so this is where the kiswa goes, which is the kiswas that you're seeing over there, right? Okay, and the last thing is I want to show you Hajar al-Aswad. If the sisters could move that way, and the brothers, if you could go that way. This is the absolute last thing in the exhibition. By the way, that's the oldest picture or drawing of the Kaaba that I could find. From the year 1400 something. There's the Kaaba and there's Masjid Nabawi. There must have been some before, but they haven't survived. So this is what I wanted to show you here. Can you all, shall I slip around here? So Hajar al-Aswad is actually in 7 pieces. Okay, so I thought it'd be nice if I could show you what those 7 pieces are. One of you might be lucky enough. I've not been lucky enough to kiss Hajar al-Aswad. Maybe one of you might be. And when you do, then you will know what you're looking at if you were to kiss it. So I thought I'd show you. So if you pay attention, I'll count out the 7 pieces of Hajar al-Aswad for you. All of this is not it, it's what it's stuck inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay?
You don't get that much time to spot which parts don't
No, you go in and kiss and get out. Absolutely.
you have to make the best out of that 2 seconds.
You do.
I
You
got
do.
the 2 seconds, that's right.
You did? I've never got it, unfortunately. Not yet. Only from far away. So somebody should be asking a question right now. Usually people do.
Why 7?
There we go. Why 7 pieces? Why 7 pieces? Why is Hajar al-Aswad in 7 pieces? So that's a good question. The reason being is because in the year 930, very early on in Islam, there was a people known as the Karamita, and the Karamita were, Yarhamkallah, they were an offshoot of Shias. They weren't Ismaili Shias, don't take from this, oh, it was Ismaili Shias. They were an offshoot of them. And these Karamita, what they did, they did the Kaaba. Makkah. There was 20,000 Hujjaj there. And they killed the Hujjaj. They took their bodies and they threw them into the well of Zamzam to defile Zamzam. Then they took Hajar al-Aswad and they took it back to their country. And then they put it on top of a pile of filth in order to disrespect Hajar al-Aswad. The Kaaba was without the without the Hajar al-Aswad for 22 years. That's something we don't know. The Hajar al-Aswad was not with the Kaaba for 22 years because of this. And they kept on, and the Muslims at the time had to pay a very, very large sum just to get it back. Okay? So that's partly why it's in 7 pieces. Obviously, apart from that, it's been many years. When it came down, it was white, and the sins of mankind turned it black. I was actually reading, I don't know how accurate this is, I was reading a description from about 700 years ago, somebody who says that they took it out of the casing, and they said the back was still white. So I don't know whether that's true, but that's something I was reading anyway. But yeah, that's Hajar al-Aswad, which came down from heaven. So if you ever get the chance to kiss it, there it is. That's the end of the exhibition. Any questions?
Isn't it they tried to break it, that's why it went into 7 pieces?
Who tried to break it? The Karamita, maybe they did. Maybe they did, yeah. Oh, Jazakallah khair. Any more questions? No questions? I've exhausted you sufficiently. Okay. Please check out the website. My card is on the back as well, where it's just behind over there. My card is there. Any questions, anything, you can take my card, you can take the leaflet, you can take the Hajj guide as well, and you could demo the website. There's a free Hajj guide. This is a small one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, that's
Very good piece of work.
Jazakallah.
Well done.
Enjoyed it, huh?
I really enjoyed it. It's very informative.
Oh, that's good.
It's fantastic. Yeah. It's a kind of it's a project in itself.
It is, yeah.
It's an ongoing thing.
It is, yeah.
And you guys are doing a very good job in terms of preserving all these information.
Jazakallah khair. Because we need to know our history. And if we don't, then
So do you go all over the UK?
all over the UK, yes.
Organizing these
Exhibition.
only in UK or outside the UK as well?
Well, I think we do it for free in the UK. And I think if it was outside the UK, we'd probably have to charge.
Yeah, of course, all you
Because it would get a bit too much, wouldn't it? Yeah. But we'd love to go out the UK.
Yeah, I think
You said don't take people to Hajj yourself. Why don't you? There's so many instances.
It's true. A lot of people are asking
People
me to
have
do
been
it.
robbing things and doing wrong things.
I think that the way to solve the problem is there's already a lot of good Hajj agents. There's already a lot of bad agents. My job is to highlight these are the good ones so they can do their good job.
I think it's the responsibility also falls on the people. For example, I went for Hajj last year. I thought I was a very clever man. I did lots of research and everything. Still somewhat happened what happened.
Something out, yeah.
So, to respond to that, I mean, instead of don't want to take it up, to respond to that, then I come back, and I thought I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I started that Hajj company.
Yeah, you started Hajj. So this is the thing, you've got to do something to solve it.
Yeah.
So alhamdulillah, you
Make
do
it
that.
simple. Make it very, very simple. People, I still get people come to me, they say, can I stay in the clock tower? I'm not joking. I've got 20 people, alhamdulillah, they're going to go this year for Hajj. They are very simple people. We want to go for Hajj. Maybe staying this place. They're okay. How much is going to cost? This much is going to cost? Okay. But I've still got people come, they say, I want to stay in the clock tower. Will I be paid 3-4 times a day? You know, can you get me an air-conditioned coach? Yes, the people still ask me the same question.
Yeah, exactly.
We make it
Well,
difficult for
my
ourselves.
experience was that they have a totally commercialized thing.
Yeah, it is.
When you go there, they are only concerned with earning money.
Yeah.
They don't have enough knowledge to guide the Hajjis. When I went there, the main person was responsible. He didn't know many things.
This is why
I started to book
Yeah, this is a big problem. This is a big problem because the profitability is seen as a business, and many people don't do it as a service
what do
anymore.
you think is the reason why people it's now being more commercialized? You know, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he did only one Hajj in his whole life.
This is true.
But why is it so that in this current
I
world,
think
people
we're
are
in a
just doing
culture.
every year?
We're in a culture where we go on
Whereas
holiday.
in out in the community, there are a lot more.
I've done 27 Hajj.
Yeah,
I've only done one.
I don't know why people make it.
If you spend that money on two people,
Yeah.
that's more than equal than a Hajj.
No, exactly. But I think that we live in a culture in England where going on holiday is a very normal thing to do. And it's very common, where are you going on holiday this year? Where you go? And I think that a lot of people think to themselves, well, instead of going to Spain or Morocco or something, I'll just go on Hajj or Umrah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Which is, I suppose, in a sense better.
It's good, but expectations are so huge. subject.
It is. Expectations are.
I had a brother, alhamdulillah, he come and said, I want to go to Umrah.